We're talking again today with JJ Semple about some of his ideas, and we're going to talk about his forthcoming book, Near to You, My Love.
And so this book, Near to You, My Love, is actually a case study of somebody who's going through this from puberty right through to the dawn of middle age. I don't know what that is nowadays. Is it 40, 50? 80 is the new 70? I don't know. But I relate to Tom.
I found this struggle elaborated on In Near to You, My Love, a book I recently published by author Cliff Terrell, a book that describes in detail the tribulations of a regular guy, such as Tom, with an overstimulated libido as he becomes drawn to and begins to practice energy cultivation techniques.
Yeah, well, what are energy cultivation techniques? Let's start with that. Something we haven't covered so far. I dub them that to try to make them as agnostic and as little terminology as possible. And okay, so obviously ballet or football could be energy cultivation in certain ways, or it might lead to something because you're trying to train the body and train the mind to be more responsive, to be more alert, to be more in the moment. So I think from just my investigation, since I have tried hypnosis, self-hypnosis, and yoga and meditation, plain old just sitting down and not knowing what to do, meditation, and slowly gravitating towards what I found out later was a Kundalini meditation. And I found that the difference is that the latter, there's actually three stages. The three stages: diaphragmatic deep breathing, control of heart rate. Those are the stages that are taught in most meditation. They're similar one to another. They don't call them that maybe, but starting with diaphragmatic deep breathing, they seek to control heart rate so that they're taking more breaths or fewer breaths in a minute and breathing more deeply. Now, the Kundalini meditation method that I followed from The Secret of the Golden Flower has a third stage, and that is the backward flowing method, where you're distilling the semen, or in the case of a woman, cervical fluid, and transforming it into an elixir, or distilling it into an elixir, and then moving it up the spine to the brain. Now, if you go to the strip mall yoga / meditation class, and they're teaching that third stage, you better get out of there, because this is heavy stuff, and it's a process that needs guidance. You can get it out of a book like I did, but it's also, I recommend somebody that's knowledgeable, and there aren't that many people that are knowledgeable. So if you're looking for meditation, question the purveyors of the class that you're interested in on, does their meditation have three different levels, three different stages? Diaphragmatic deep breathing, using to awaken the diaphragm and use it for breathing, always through the nose. And then control of heart rate, which is just follows automatically. You don't have to do anything except learn through the breathing. But you'll see that you can control the heart rate if you do the breathing correctly, and that'll get you at least to where you it's a good place. It's like you're back of the, you're in the end zone, and if you can practice those first two, you're at the 10-yard line. You still have a long way to go, but at least you're somewhere. And now, I didn't find that automatically by reading The Secret of the Golden Flower and say, aha. I started to practice this meditation, the instructions that they give that are mixed in with the Buddhist dogma and doctrine. And when things started to happen inside, I could feel and sensations, sort of like when you feel when you're having some kind of a disease or something, where you first start to feel shivers or sweats or just tingling all over, or maybe a specific organ's telling you something. And that's that'll get you started. Let's leave it at that.
So where would one go for a teacher? Do you offer that kind of?
I used to, but now I'm getting too old to be I'm I just don't do, I can't do as much as I used to in one day, and I was always kind of overloaded to begin with, and now it's even harder because I'm always writing. And then I'm trying to get the word out, which is a big, takes a lot of energy. Now, there are some methods that are, I think, there's one method I'm thinking of that I'll send you some information on. I hope that a listener can understand that the possibility of having that meditation being broken down into three phases that you don't get really familiar with until you're actually practicing it, and you get to these stages and you say, aha, now I know this breathing has had an effect because I can feel it, and I know this heart rate is having control of heart rate is having an effect because I can feel it down in my scrotum. And you can then take the steps to implement the backward flowing method, which I don't recommend somebody going for without doing the first three. You can't jump in this meditation. You can try to jump, and you're making a big mistake if you do, but you shouldn't jump. You should take it slow, learn to really get to the breathing and learn it from the bottom up.
Yeah. No, I mean, my sense of that is that, I mean, that's part of the idea of the 100 days, that this other work has to be done of, stillness and focus on the breathing and slowing the heart rate. Like you said, that has to be practiced for a while before this other thing happens, and that other thing that happens can't really be forced. I'll share with you, I saw, I think it was yesterday after we talked, I was on YouTube and I saw a YouTube video about it was like someone had my Kundalini awakening, and I listened to it. I thought, oh, this is interesting. And it's like they were talking about first of all, like a lot of drug experiences and stuff, and then they went right to like out of body, right to talking about out of body experiences. Now, there wasn't any golden flower mentioned in any of this at all. It was all just like Kundalini and the idea of Kundalini awakening. And it felt to me, and maybe you've seen this, but it seems like, well, people will take this idea of that and then just superimpose their own subjective experiences on it and say, this is what that was, when really maybe that what they were having was just a really vivid daydream or a drug experience or something like that.
Oh, I hardly agree. Yeah, just and there's the also terminology is involved in that, and again, it's terminology is the bane of this work because people bandy it about, and in a thing like that, they add a lot of terminology that they've learned that really doesn't help you. The only thing that helps you with this stuff is sitting down in a lotus position or half lotus if you can't do that, or lying back, whatever you can do, and starting to breathe regularly. 1, 2, 3, 4, inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, exhale. And you can do it 2, 4, 4, 4, and just keep going and always through the nose, using the belly as a kind of pump, and just keep it going from there.
So I'll read on then. Near to you, my love, is a pilgrimage. One man's search for self-realization, his struggle to overcome the temptations that present themselves in his ambitious go-getting job as a TV producer.
Yeah, I wanted to put this person on the spot and have him involved with a lot of relationships because I think it's it's more or less the way things are going right now. People are getting married much later, and there's a lot of drinking, a lot of drug use. I mean, it's in my generation there was pot and LSD and there's speed and things like that, but now it's really there's been so much experimentation with different drugs and real chemists, not just guys with a couple of plants in their backyard, but real chemists have, come to, in the laboratory or the greenhouse, they've perfected the power of some of these drugs, and I don't, and people tend to mix this up with near-death experience or out of body or spiritual experience or
exactly. That's what I was talking about before, definitely.
And that's a danger to the individual. I wouldn't do it. I didn't do it when I was first starting. I realized those things were separate. And the effect of the breathing and the meditation I outlined in the previous segment was that slowly I became aware that I didn't need that. I looking back, I think I used pot for social reasons, that I had a certain nervousness in a group. And if I got high, I could go in, and it was better than alcohol because alcohol, you get after a while, you don't know what you get. You get testy, you get aggressive, or you get maudlin. And so it's just, pot was a kind of an even keel, steadier type of high. And the pot also wasn't as strong back then as it is now. But I look back and in just a self-critical sense, it seems to me I was using it for social support, to talk to a woman, for instance, or or to talk in a discussion where the topic seems very erudite and I don't really know what I'm talking about, but I find myself in the conversation anyway, and some are even making sense. But I found that physiologically and psychologically, I didn't need the crutch of doing drugs, and when I did it, I didn't do it alone a lot. I did it in a group or with on a date. And that was it. It just fell away of its own accord.
So he discovers the evolutionary driver, Kundalini, the energy behind man's existence on Earth, a far different life purpose from finding a mate, getting married, or bearing children, although the need to perpetuate the race is self-explanatory. All of which stems from the author's discovery that the profane gives birth to the sacred.
Yeah, the vulgar to the holy, self-indulgence to self-realization. Yeah, I don't know if there's any. Could you read the middle sentence in that again?
A far different life purpose from finding a mate, getting married,
Oh, yes, yeah.
or bearing children, although the need to perpetuate the race is self-explanatory.
Yeah. One of the ways to help people who are struggling get started is for them to realize that life really has two purposes. One is very simple. It's to keep the race going, having children. Porn is not one of life's purposes, although it is. And the other purpose is self-realization. In other words, in the first, the semen flows out into a woman or a partner. In the second, semen is distilled into an elixir and flows up and in. So that's what we mean by sexual sublimation. Sublimation meaning the internaling of the elixir, which is the other purpose. And by this, and this has been happening and been known since, Phoenician times, early Greek and Roman times, that life had those dual purposes. And you could start with one, especially having children, and move to the other. If you did it soon enough, you don't want to start when you're 70, I don't think. But that knowledge will help you make a decision, because you'll know what those two options are. Right now, most people don't think of life as in those terms. And even if you say, "Oh, I'd never do that. I'd never," that's holy roller stuff. There is no fiction or opinion in this work. It's all fact-based. These sensations are, the meditations are, the breathing is real.
Yeah, I think that's really true what you're saying, that this is an ancient knowledge, and you find this practice of retention, from early monks in the desert and early Christianity to all over the Asiatic systems, and I think the not understanding the real purpose of it, because it's difficult to talk about. It's so much like there needs to be an experience with it, so that whenever it gets explained, any attempts to explain it out to other people, it always like falls apart. Um, and I think it kind of it's gotten turned into an anti-female or some sort of like negative sort of association like that, when really that's not the case. And in one sense, I also think of how, and the Golden Flower text talks about this, I think with animus and anima, or like yin and yang, and this idea that there's like these like different currents in life, right? There's like ascending current or descending current in life, and the current that flows downward is the current that flows into life, and that takes you out to the realm of procreation, all of that side of it, and that also takes you out to all of the other things, the partying and the drugs and all of the dangerous things in life, right? And then somehow you make a decision to you tapping into that other current that flows kind of upward and inward. I think of the movement of upward, up the spine, retaining inwardly, right? That's like a different stream in life that kind of like puts you in touch with something else. And ultimately, you don't want to be just one or other, but you can't leave behind the stream of life, right? You still have to like have a foot in that and do the things in life that have to be done, put food on the table and all of that kind of stuff. But at some point you have to make this effort to kind of connect with that other stream. I think it's really profound when you say the profane gives birth to the sacred.
Yeah, and that's people, they don't like that because especially if they're church going, and because they're church going people are really coming from instead of a fact based from a belief based system. They have to believe in what? In somebody's opinion. Somebody wrote something down, and they're to be taken seriously as the truth without ever being vetted. But in that paragraph that you just read, I'd like to get into some of the thing of how is somebody exposed to this. And let's just take I'll take a case study from the book that we're talking about, near to you, my love, and begin with, in his case, a gnawing feeling, just at certain points, even as a teenager, that there was something out there, and then there's the he's in his job is go-getter driven, produce, run around, interview. It's a very hard job. Be ready to go at any moment, and so he's in this job that he loves to a degree, but knows that he's generally just overextended and always promising himself to relax or take it easy or take a vacation, but he doesn't. And the next step of his, dare call it indoctrination. I don't mean to be facetious about that, but what happens is he's covering the 1968 Republican convention, Democratic convention in Chicago. And he's out shooting at Grants Park, shooting video, and recording sound actually, of the riots. And he's with the sound man, and the sound man, all of a sudden they're talking, and all of a sudden the sound man hits the deck. Somebody's whacked him on the head and knocked him cold. And as the protagonist leans down to see what's going on, what happened, he gets knocked on the head and dragged into the bushes. And he's discovered later he's lost his memory, but he's also gained some hidden qualities, uh, um, capabilities. He's able to play the piano. He's in the hospital, but after a couple of days, he just gets up out of his bed and walks down to the area, the common area, and starts playing really sophisticated Eric Satie and boogie woogie, just like but that wears off, and his colleagues are looking for him, and his girlfriend they're looking for him, and finally, one girl, they know he's in Chicago, or they feel he is, but he's been in this little teeny hospital where just a few people were taken, and he's discovered by his colleague Carlotta, and she flies him back to DC, and now he knows something, although he kind of doesn't want to. He knows that he shouldn't be bragging about it or trying. It's just he's feeling like, I got to take it when it comes and just explore and figure out really what's happening and why it's happening to me. And it's really a spontaneous Kundalini awakening that's happened because something in the brain started soaking up semen, distilling and drawing up the elixir into the brain. But it's not permanent. It's temporary, and it's not only temporary. It happens at odd times. And he has a Chinese girlfriend who later tells him about, who lives in New York, and tells him about a sage, a Chinese guy named Ming Lo. And so he goes to Ming Lo a few times and gets more information and more. And Ming Lo shows him some surprising things. And so he's beginning to feel that this is real, that there's something out there and it's important in his life. And then again, he's towards the end of the book, he's in a situation and he's moved to California because he quit the network, and he's producing a film on the Nixon victory in the '68 elections, and so he's at a party, and the host generally brings in us, and this is happening in Laguna Beach, which is perfect for this type of thing. The host of this party brings in a speaker every time, but somebody who's just not a known speaker, but somebody, because Laguna Beach is filled with Hare Krishnas and other people that are just like, in London at Hyde Park, getting up on a soapbox and spouting. And so this time the invitee is a guy named Mr. Patel, which is one of India's most common surnames. And so Mr. Patel has actually works the guests through a sample Kundalini meditation that I just outlined in the previous segment, where he's worked on the breathing and making sure that people are breathing with their diaphragm. And so after his demo, which doesn't last very long, the protagonist corners Mr. Patel, and they talk about his experience and what happened to him and his hidden powers that he's kind of developed on an occasional basis. And then when Mr. Patel leaves, the party morphs into a kind of an orgy that he and his girlfriend didn't know was going to happen. And so they get involved in that in one way, but he's like very, very sensitive to the fact that he's now right in the crux of this, self-indulgence versus self-realization challenge that's, overtaking the rest of the things in his life. And so, yeah, that's it's how it happens. It's that there's always an interesting story in everyone's life on, okay, this has happened to me, but how did it happen? What were there steps? Were they something you avoided or something you look forward to? Did they just come like a knock on the head? Or did you sit down for years, try to use this breathing method or that other method, or the method we discussed yesterday, the what's his name, Mantek Chia?
Mantek Chia, yeah.
Yeah.
Microcosmic orbit.
Microcosmic orbit, yeah.
Oh, good. Near to You, My Love is also a Bildungsroman, defined as the class of novel that depicts and explores the manner in which the protagonist develops morally and psychologically, as well as, in this case, sexually. We watch him evolve from a sex enthusiast into a discerning, disciplined professional as, one after another, he faces an array of personal challenges. At the same time, his country struggles with war, civil rights, and the sexual revolution during the turbulent 1960s.
Yeah, I mean, we look back now, and the younger generation does on the 60s, and they generally poo-poo it like, oh, it's more of what dad and mom did, the crazy stuff they talk about, but we don't really believe it was all that crazy, not compared to how crazy we are, which is, in fact, very crazy. So, yeah, I mean, that whole thing of the Bildungsroman, which is a German word to encapsulate the definition that Paul just read. And it's to take you or the hero or some of the characters from one place to another and in their lives. And in this case, the protagonist knows by that time in the novel that there are two paths that he can, and he's still young enough to accept one path or the other.
So some of the things that we've talked about here about the protagonist sounds semi-autobiographical. So you mentioned that he works in TV. Didn't you? You worked in TV too, right?
Yes, I did. And I only worked there, I probably worked there 5 years, but it was such an education because the work is frantic no matter what you were. I started out as a film editor, and as an apprentice film editor. I was really the low man on the totem pole. And I mean, my pay was something like $50 a week or something. I mean, back then, nobody had any money back then. And it took me a couple of years to work up to assistant editor and then to full editor. But it was an education because the people working in television were very, it's kind of you meet somebody like an actor or a broadcaster or an anchor man, and you think, oh man, this guy's bound to know where it's at. I mean, I just listen to it on TV, and I know he's really well. The audience tends to infuse these qualities on these people, and they're not all that. There are some, but they're not in general all that. Aware. And they just do a job, and they're competitive. Did I look good? Was I better than so and so? But there's a lot of sex going on in there behind the scenes. But at that time, when I was there were no women on any of the three stations. There were only three stations, and there was PBS and equivalent that was just beginning. But NBC, CBS, and ABC. That was it, and there were no women. And there was one woman I think got hired by NBC, Nancy Dickerson, and right around 1970, that's when the floodgates opened, and women just came in with a vengeance and started doing excellent work. But the newsroom, which is just where it's just a pool of people, were all guys,
Wow.
and there was. The NBC hired Charlene Hunter, who was I believe Charlene was the young lady that had to be ushered into the University of Alabama by the National Guard. So she was a celebrity in her own right, but a wonderful person, and we became good friends. And so there was that type of relationship with somebody that you knew as on a deeper level, and then there was the superficial level, and there were that group way balanced the other group, and there was also a lot of travel and going places. And in the book, the protagonist gets sent to a lot of different places, including Paris, France, where he covers the beginning of the 68 in March, the beginning of the demonstrations. The demonstrations themselves, the really heavy ones, took place in May of 1968. But there was a preliminary bunch in featuring a raid on the American Express building in Paris where the mob just descends on it and just destroys it in like 15 minutes. And so anyway, there's a lot of action in this book, and there's a lot of self awareness teaching, or teaching a lot of teaching oneself self-awareness. And so I think most jobs have that kind of thing where something is happening on many different levels. And it's good to have this kind of a model. I mean, this is a blueprint, a template for people. Read the book and start, realizing that you can analyze your life, so to speak, in parallel with this fictitious, fictional life.
Another thing you mentioned is the protagonist plays some jazz music. Didn't you also have a little jazz musician experience in your background?
Yeah.
In the Paris days?
Well, music is the most of the arts, I think, the most physiological, exhaustive. I mean, writing is hard. People can't imagine that, a guy out working with his hands would have a hard time thinking that writing is also very demanding. I mean, you get drained as a writer, but it's a different kind of energy that you're using. It's brain power. And I'm reading right now a book by
The Eraser's Edge?
The Razor's Edge.
Razor's Edge.
Yeah. By W. Somerset Maugham. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm reading a book where he's looking back on his life as a writer, and explaining the things that he really self-critical, the aspects of writing that he was not good at, and the ones that he was much better at. And it's very very informative as a writer to see somebody being able to break down and the energy that it must have taken. And so he talks about some of the ways that he's practicing, and he's going back to, and he's British, so he's going back to Swift and Dryden, who were, 17th and 18th century writers. And, Swift wrote Gulliver's Travels, and then just learning to write. And so he'd copy a page of Swift, and then he'd study it, and then he'd try to, by memory, just say it out loud. And he went through all kinds of exercises like that, writing a book or a short story without any adjectives, so, and because he didn't have the online, he would have loved the Microsoft Word with their, instant thesaurus that you could sum it up at any moment. Yeah, the every profession or every job has a different kind of uses a different kind of energy. I can imagine, an airline pilot must use, on taking off and landing, they must sweat a lot. And same, but anyway, back to music. Music is the most physiologically draining. I just, really, you get up there and you start sweating, and jazz to me, when I left the States, jazz was very important, and it was played and obviously recorded, still is, but not to the degree it was. And that kind of died in the 70s. But it's jazz is, or music in general, is also a good mirror. It tells you about yourself if you can play or if you can't play. It tells you about another important factor, and that is one's. Here's another senior moment. Your balance, because in this meditation, the first suggestion is to look at the tip of your nose with both eyes, and to do that, you have to kind of direct the eyes inward to the nose and the tip of the nose. And from there, you can try to, what they say is drop your center. From that is like, they talk about it like a plumber or a carpenter has his, well, that's what plumb means is the word plumb is from the French lead. Plumb is lead in French. And a plumb is a tool to make sure the fireplace you're building or the house you're constructing is actually plumb, is actually. And so with the level and the plumb line, these are tools. If you can't do something, if you can't, most people probably can't draw a perfect circle. But the person that can, you can tell a lot about them, that they're probably a good candidate for meditation. Oh yeah, here it is. So this is very far-reaching. People probably read this little quote and don't know what the hell it's talking about. But what he says in this quote is, can we deny that the fact that whether a fortuitous gift, divine grace, or the fruit of Kundalini, of karma, in every case, there is a close line between the talent or beauty exhibited and the organic structure of the individual. So this is a description of, they've done tests on scientific explorations of symmetry, like found out that horses will follow the most symmetrical member of the pack, and that women choose usually the most symmetrical of men, because for procreation purposes. And so that was I don't know if I'll ever get around to writing it, but I'll send you a copy of this cover. You might be able to.
Yeah, just lower it down there a little. Yeah, I can see. Oh yeah, it's I got the faces on there that are more or less symmetrical.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know what those faces are, is that the person that did that, he took a picture of people, of individuals, and then drew a line down put them into Photoshop, and then cut right down the middle, and then separated them and made attached the two extremes, the two centers, and the real individual, to see how far. Because if a person is totally symmetrical, all three will be the same.
Yeah.
So it's a thing that people probably don't relate to because they're symmetrical. I don't know, but it's not like asymmetrical people are causing all the crime. Yeah, but it is a determination, like in the Gopika, which I read poorly because my eyes give me trouble. But
well, I think I think the idea that of symmetry in nature, and the idea that that we sort of intuitively are drawn towards symmetry or harmonious blending. That it makes me think of like Pythagoras.
Yes, exactly.
Right, talks about the golden mean.
Yeah.
The golden rectangle and stuff, which they've gone and said, it's all this architecture has this, and the part that we kind of missed in Western academia has missed out on is the idea of inner harmony that like corresponds with that. And I think Pythagoras probably taught that. Like I said, Pythagoras had like these initiatory academy and stuff like that we don't know anything about. We just know the mathematics that's like left from it. But probably, most likely he taught like some sort of inner harmonious like development type thing. And I mean, Secret of the Golden Flower and Taoism and Shidro is just, it's all about. It's all about inner harmony. It's all about trying to bring that sort of harmony on the inside first. The idea being, if I'm not going to be any good at dealing with harmony or creating harmony, symmetry in the outside world if I'm a mess inside. I'm a chaotic mess inside, or I'm not even bothering to look inside. So it's like the whole question of symmetry and harmony really has to get with me with like an internal sort of look, attention,
Yeah, I found out very quickly that Kundalini's purpose, number one purpose, is rooting out asymmetry in an individual, and using this evolutionary energy to pull up because it all matters. The head is just a reflection of the body. The two go together. So if there's a part in my next book where come on. I don't have a copy of that book, but right now. But what that is I have images of a butterfly, one that grew up with a damaged wing, and an experiment that they did with testing with butterflies, the symmetry of one that's they all shy away from the one that's defective or crippled almost. And it's amazing because just if you think about that, a lot of the charity work in the free world, the world that brings you the atomic bomb and racial hatred, are these schools of where we take care of people who are we give license plates, and we have hospitals to take care of people that formerly were shunned, and so it makes our culture so so difficult to reconcile and understand. At the same time, we go into schools and start shooting, and as we take people, what is it? What's it called? When you on your license plate, if you're what do they call it? When you have that special license plate or the little
disabled.
Disabled, yeah.
Yeah.
When you're disabled, we care for the disabled. At the same time, we are out to, like invade Iraq for, I don't
Right.
know. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No.
And make things much worse than they were when we started.
Yeah. Absolutely. I was thinking, you talk somewhere, I think it's in Deciphering the Golden Flower, One Secret at a Time. You talk about Kundalini. You talk about how there's a DNA blueprint at the time of your birth. And then as we go through life.
At the time of inception.
The time of inception.
Yeah, the split second beforehand. So it's a metaphysical thing. It actually exists before there's even an embryo. Now, this again, here I'm talking about belief or fact-based. This came as a vision, so I can't say that it's something I felt. It was more, like an extrapolation. So go ahead anyway.
Well, I mean, it would correspond with I'm really into Zoroastrianism. I find a lot of like real significance in the Gathas of Zarathustra, and I know that we talked a little bit about that. But I mean, there is the idea.
The Nietzsche book, or
no, not the Nietzsche book, but Zoroaster, the Persian, actual Persian prophet. But one of those teachings is the idea of the pre-soul, that we have an existence prior to our existence here, and in a spiritual kind of form, and then the spirit makes a decision, voluntary decision, to come to manifest in this realm. And we could talk about reincarnation or whatever. The idea of a pre-existence before this one is something that's out there. So yeah, I get that's more of a intuitive sort of presumption rather than something that we know for sure. But the idea that you were talking about is that blueprint. Then it comes into our life, right? We're born with that blueprint, and then as we go through life, it gets messed up, right? We go through the harshness of life and physical trauma, emotional trauma, psychological trauma, all kind of sets that growth direction off in like different directions, and it ruins the symmetry. Like that idea of symmetry is there with that initial blueprint. That was the point I was trying to make about all of this. That we start out with this like natural symmetry and harmony as we come from let's just say great nature, as we descend from great nature into this human condition. We come from that, we have that symmetry, but then we lose that symmetry over the course of life. Then the activation of Kundalini, or this second awakening, or whatever it is, one of the things it does is it begins to realign what we've become back with what we were originally. Does that make sense?
Oh, I love your expression, intuitive presumption.
Oh.
Do you remember saying that?
Yeah, I said something like that.
That's no. I wrote it down. That's why I tucked away. Intuitive presumption that to make that connection. There's got to be, it has to happen before, because it's more of an energy consciousness mind that's taking place in some other realm, and that we can only say is an intuitive presumption. We can only discover through something like that. It may be. I mean, and it's not something. It's not a forced. We're not asking people to believe in it or anything. We're asking them to test it and say, to find out in their own life if it has any real truth behind it, or if they can. Sometimes you can grasp a thing before you're actually able to experience it,
Right.
and just by hearing it or knowing it, you can get into a space where you're actually feeling it or knowing what it. You've not been told to believe something.
Right. Like I mean, for me, the experience of delving into this system, this way, wasn't predicated on you have to have faith. You must have faith in this, that there was a, DNA blueprint before birth, or whatever, these different things that we talk about. It's like you referred to with Ouspensky, you believe nothing that you cannot verify yourself. The search is like predicated on a wish for something, right? On a wish or a desire to have more, more symmetry or more health or more wisdom in my life. But then my experience about things is based upon what I am experiencing, on what I can see in myself, and what I learn from there. And these other models, like a model of a pre-soul, maybe that makes more sense at a certain point in time, but ultimately it doesn't matter. Ultimately, it doesn't matter for like what I'm, trying to be here or trying to become. It doesn't really matter what it looked like, back before I was born. What matters is what I'm experiencing here, and what.
Oh yeah, and I think it's like I read the book, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, a long time ago, but it has a very elaborate breakdown of of consciousness and of stages of existence. That there's no stage where we cease to exist. It's just we morph into another form, and death has several stages that you go through. And then in the end, you pick your own parents to reincarnate.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how you get that information or how you're able to evaluate it, but I mean,
one thing that it does, one thing that model does, that I think is a good thing, whether it's true or not, or exactly how it all unfolds, is that what it means is that you are responsible for your existence here on the planet. You are personally responsible for your existence on the planet, because you chose to come here. You volunteered to come here. So there's no, oh, woe is me, life is so hard, I've been dealt this bad hand, it's someone else's fault, or I'm oppressed, right? There's no room for that, because
beautiful,
the very essence of your beginning here is based on a personal responsibility. So, and that's one thing that I think the world might be a better place if everyone had that, had that sense within them, rather than always looking elsewhere for someone else to be responsible for their existence. we talked about this yesterday. Outsourcing our spirituality to the church, right? I'll talk to the priest, and then he'll talk to God, and they'll take care of it for me.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, absolutely. That's the yeah. I'm glad you feel strong about that, because I think that's it's the you got me interested in Zoroaster. What's the is there a book that was purportedly written by him, or is it disciples, or how is it structured?
So there's the Gathas of Zarathustra, which I'll send you a PDF. I'll send you a PDF of what I think is my favorite translation of it. And that's it's like the Gathas are like an ancient, the ancient language of Avestan. It's a pre-Indo-Iranian language, and they were sung, right? It's one of these ancient, epic poem type things, oral tradition. And so it's sung. And so since it's sung today by Zoroastrians that still exist in Persia and India, it's like we're pretty 99.9% certain they have not been altered in like maybe 5,000, maybe 10,000 years. And they're probably there probably was this original guy, Zarathustra, who sang them, because it's all like a first person sort of thing. So I'll send you a PDF of that, and I'll also send you a link there's a book called The Good Religion that came out pretty recently, which is a good sort of summary of like the ideas that are in it. But people speculate that had an effect that influenced like Taoism in ancient China because of the silk. It's a part of the Silk Road on there, and there's a lot of similarities, like in the yin yang, and is like Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu, like these two cosmic forces and stuff. And there's a lot of similarities that come up of it. And one of them, this is in the Gathas. In the Gathas, Zarathustra says the best practice is to sit quietly and still every day. Start out every day sitting quiet and still.
Yeah.
So that's where the idea that, I mean, in one sense, that's what the Golden Flower teaching is saying. That, look, the best thing to do is just every day start out, sit still for 15 minutes, watch the breath, and then everything else will start to harmonize around that in some sense. And
that's what Buddha said. He said, I think, sit under a tree until something happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
and
good advice.
I think that the that Christianity even was originally about that. Like Gurdjieff talked about, he said Christianity is actually 5,000 years older than Christ, and it came out of Egypt and stuff. And it's like, you can kind of see if you read between the lines in the Gospels,
there's those hidden Gospels. I read that. I forget the name of it. It's called the
Nag Hammadi Library.
No, this was called the Hidden Gospel of something. But it's very much it has a very much of a Buddhist Taoist type of
right.
So, I mean, I haven't read it in a long time, but I remember being very influenced by it, because it one's like, I was raised, and we all are, or at least most of us are raised with some kind of Christian values or something, and to see that, like, the state that it's actually in. I mean, just going to church is a bore, and it's a social club, and these things are you're supposed to practice something. You don't go to a dance to just exchange gossip. You go to dance, actually, to exercise with a partner, and that's the same thing in religion. You go to the Buddhists go there, and they participate. There's biology gets into it, not just sitting around and telling how strong your faith is.
Right.
I mean,
right. And checking in on each other and judging each other, watching each other, and all of this kind of stuff. For a lot, like Gurdjieff said, for a lot of people, religion is a policeman.
Yeah. Yeah, and it has been. Look, I mean, you go back into the Spanish Inquisition and where these people got. I mean, or the in New England, these, in the stocks. If you didn't believe, you'd be.
Yeah.
Where these people. Well, I guess it's just a form of trying to extend personal power is by doing something like that and getting people to believe in that you're righteous and you should be given this power to do it to just about anybody.
Yeah.
A deformation of human capability. I've always thought that IQ is really, it's what you use it for that matters more than the so-called score.
Oh yeah.
If you're not, if you have a high IQ and you're using it to murder people or to ridicule people, you're not really smart.
Right. No, it means almost nothing as far as being a good person or a moral person. There's like something in the heart. I think there's something in the heart that needs to be added to it. There's a feeling that needs to be developed, and I think a system like Golden Flower takes you in the direction of building that part, growing that part, reviving that part of us that needs to take part in it. Ospensky and Gurdjieff talk about emotional. There's an intellectual center or emotional center and a moving center, but all we ever talk about in ordinary society is the intellectual center. Like basically, like does all of the talking, and then the emotional center just kind of pulls us some direction. Right, it just pulls us around, and then our intellectual center explains why you did what you did, when really we don't know why we're doing what we're doing most of the time. We're just like led around like automatons. So there's something about bringing back an autonomy, getting the feeling and the emotions on equilibrium, getting into a harmony or a symmetry with the rest of the body, so we're all acting as a unified organism. Like the Golden Flower talks about that a couple of times, where it's like it becomes like the holy king, and then all of the servants around, they just fall in line, right? Once that king arises, everyone just falls in line around us, and it's like our state as ordinary human beings. We don't really have a king. We don't have a permanent I. We're just a mess of personalities and contradictions.
Right on.
Well, hey, JJ, my time is up here again, but
okay.
My God, I enjoy our conversations so much that I hope we can have more in the future. I'll send you some links for some stuff.
Okay, great. I'll send you. I'm gonna scan this thing, and because it's an interesting idea. It looks like I actually got an ISBN number for it. So
cool. All right. On the symmetry book, you got an ISBN for it?
Yeah, I mean, I
you need to publish that then. Get that.
Well, I guess do I really? It would probably be a better interview book than anything else. Than me just write. I mean, I can only visualize off the top of my head like one or two chapters to introduce the topic, and then just even getting people that have never thought about it might be an interesting thing. Yeah. Is just kind of pump prime and see if you get any reaction. Yeah. And some people walk away, so, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Type of thing, but
yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, sounds good. We'll talk more in the future.
Yeah, let me know when this goes. Would you mind if I give you a link to this book? an Amazon link, maybe.
Absolutely.
I don't have it yet. I'm waiting for the cover right now.
Right. No, absolutely. Yeah. Give me the link and I'll promote it out far and wide.
Okay.
For sure.
Great talking to you, Paul.
All right. Great talking to you.
Bye-bye.
We'll talk again. Take care. Bye-bye.